More allegations of subpar works at another Sha Tin to Central Link worksite. 8 injured when a taxi plows into pedestrians near Red Square in the Russian capital. And Greece and Macedonia sign an agreement over a name change deal.
Hello and good evening. The MTR Corporation remains silent over another allegation of subpar works on its Sha Tin to Central Link project. Workers building the exhibition centre station were apparently at risk as they were digging deeper below ground before diaphragm walls were fully supported. Lawmaker Michael Tien said he learnt about this from frontline staff on site. Across the road from Wan Chai Ferry Pier, the construction site of Exhibition Centre Station. When completed, the underground station will serve as an interchange between the East Rail Line and the future North Island Line. It's one of 10 stations on the Sha Tin to Central Link and a third station with recent reports of faulty or shabby works. Lawmaker Michael Tien said frontline workers at Exhibition Centre Station alerted him to this.
For every 2 or 3 meters, they need to construct a layer of cross-pattern struts, all right, to keep the diaphragm wall intact so that they can further excavate, and then after 2 or 3 meters, they construct a layer of struts again. Okay, so apparently, from what I heard, is that they keep excavating, but the requirement was not adhered to. All right, so probably several layers of struts have not been in place. So basically, the workers are at risk. I heard that MTR had noticed this and had put a halt to the operation.
One civil engineer thinks without sufficient struts, the retaining wall will bulge out. But that's not all.
If over-excavation continues, then even the stability of the retaining structure will be at risk. And when it collapses, the life of the workers will be threatened, the life of the people walking on the road outside the excavation will be threatened. I'm sure tonight, or maybe tomorrow, the MTR will require them to install this layer of I-beam spec. And once it's back, then the safety of this wall will be assured.
Works at Exhibition Centre Station are also handled by Leighton China State Joint Venture. Leighton, meanwhile, is also the contractor accused of cutting short steel bars, supporting a new platform at Hong Kong Station. Simon Pei, the chief of the Independence Commission Against Corruption, gave no clear answers on whether the anti-graft body will initiate an investigation into that scandal.
The government is set to announce its decision on a proposed vacancy tax for developers by the end of this month. The tax, if implemented, would target developers who hoard unsold first-hand residential flats. As Christy Leung reports, developers say even if the tax is introduced, exemptions should be given to homes larger than 1,000 square feet in area.
The government says this year there are 9,000 newly completed homes that haven't been rolled out in the market. But according to Stuart Leung, Executive Committee Chairman of the Real Estate Developers Association of Hong Kong, that figure is debatable. He thinks the government should count only those residential units that are left empty after receiving a certificate of compliance instead of an occupation permit.
If you draw the line at CC, then the number coming up is only 3,000. It's not 9,000. You got the OP. What we call is only practical completion on that project. Flooring hasn't been laid down yet, and also some of the kitchen equipment hasn't been done. So mostly it may take 6 months to 12 months for all this completed, so that people can really move in.
He hopes there will be flexibility for developers if the authorities insist on charging them for vacant units.
It will create a lot of difficulties for developers, especially for the luxury apartments and houses. And all these, it's not that easy to sell. That's why we would like to divide it into at least two categories. One is the mass project, probably under 1,000 square feet for the luxury one, or for the houses, and we'll take a different way of doing it.
It is still unclear if the government will really introduce a vacancy tax, though Chief Executive Carrie Lam earlier said more details on the subject will be announced later this month. Christy Lam, TVB News.
Police are looking for a man wanted for allegedly robbing and trying to rape a 20-year-old woman in the Kai Tak development area last night. At Kai Ching Estate at around 9 last evening, a man in his 40s grabbed the victim in a chokehold and used his key to threaten her. The man then dragged the woman into nearby bushes, took her bank card and attempted to rape her. The culprit later fled the scene. Police said the man is 1.65 to 1.7 meters tall and was wearing a white hat and dark-coloured clothing at the time.
Turning overseas now, a taxi driver who drove his car into a crowd of pedestrians near Red Square in Moscow said he accidentally hit the wrong pedal. The incident had people running in fear that it might be a terrorist attack during the World Cup. 8 people were injured. Moscow police said the taxi driver had a driver's license that was issued in Kyrgyzstan, a mainly Muslim ex-Soviet republic. But Moscow's mayor declared the driver lost control of his vehicle. It happened as Moscow streets are crowded with tourists during one of the world's most watched sporting events.
Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras survived a no-confidence vote in Parliament over a deal reached with Macedonia. The two countries agreed earlier this week the name of the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia would be changed to the Republic of Northern Macedonia. Alan Buckner explains.
At issue for the Greeks is that Macedonia is also the name of one of its provinces and the birthplace of ancient warrior Alexander the Great. Macedonia adopted its name in 1991 after a peaceful secession from the former Yugoslavia. Athens argues the name usurps its ancient Greek history and heritage. Earlier this week, Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras and his Macedonian counterpart Zoran Zaev agreed the Balkan country will be known as the Republic of Northern Macedonia. Greece would then lift its opposition to the country joining the European Union and the NATO military alliance. But the accord drew strong criticism from the opposition New Democracy Party in Greece, which accused Tsipras of making too many concessions. However, a no-confidence motion was rejected by a vote of 153 to 127. Had Tsipras lost, the leftist firebrand elected in 2015 would have had to relinquish his mandate and call an early election. The agreement triggered a storm of protests in both countries. Macedonian demonstrators are opposed to the name change, and in Athens they feel it doesn't go far enough. This morning, the foreign ministers of the two countries signed the agreement at the Greece-Macedonia border. But the deal still has a lot of hurdles that could take months to clear. Macedonia's president said earlier this week he won't sign the deal brokered by the Prime Minister. But that could change if it's ratified by the Macedonian parliament and passes a subsequent referendum. Only after that does the Greek parliament vote on ratification. If all that goes through, Macedonia's president must sign off on the name deal with Greece. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
The death toll from a suicide bombing in Afghanistan against a group of Taliban fighters celebrating a holiday ceasefire has risen to 36. Afghan officials say another 65 people were wounded in Saturday's attack. The bomber targeted a gathering of fighters who were celebrating a 3-day truce coinciding with the Eid al-Fitr holiday. There's been no claim of responsibility, but the attack was likely carried out by the Islamic State group, which was not included in the ceasefire and has clashed with the Taliban in the past. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has since announced a 9-day extension of the ceasefire. It's not clear if the Taliban intends to observe the extension.
And still ahead tonight. Migrants on board the rescue ship Aquarius arrive in Spain. A volcanic eruption in the Galapagos poses threats to wildlife in that area. And a survey shows many foreign domestic workers are overcharged for employment agency services. Welcome back to TVB News. Hundreds of migrants pulled from the Mediterranean by a charity rescue ship have arrived in the Spanish port city of Valencia. The grueling 9-day voyage has reignited Europe's battle over how to handle immigration. James Aiken reports.
The Aquarius, along with 2 other vessels, were carrying 629 mainly sub-Saharan Africans who had been rescued from the Mediterranean. They had been stuck off the coast of Sicily last Saturday when Italy refused the Aquarius permission to dock and demanded that Malta do so. Malta also refused. After days of bickering and with food and water running low, Spain stepped in and offered to accept the vessel. But that would be a journey of 1,500 kilometers across the Mediterranean. The migrants, including 7 pregnant women, are said to be in good condition, but some are in a state of shock. The Aquarius is operated by Doctors Without Borders and another aid group. The head of the group in Spain says he's glad the convoy was allowed to dock, but he's worried about European nations closing their ports to those rescued at sea. The plight of the Aquarius has highlighted the European Union's failure to agree on how to manage huge numbers of people fleeing poverty and conflict. More than 1.8 million migrants have arrived in Europe since 2014. Spain's new socialist government has taken up the cause to demonstrate its commitment to protecting human rights and respecting international law. But anti-migrant feelings have surged in Italy, where more than 600,000 people have arrived by sea. The sentiment has helped Italy's new government assert its anti-immigrant stance. Meanwhile, thousands marched in Rome yesterday to show solidarity with migrants after a 29-year-old migrant agricultural worker was shot and killed in southern Italy early this month. A European Union summit will discuss the bloc's asylum rules at the end of the month. James Aiken, TVB News.
Britain's Interior Minister used an exceptional power yesterday to release medicinal cannabis oil to help an epileptic boy experiencing seizures. 12-year-old Billy Caldwell and his mother Charlotte travelled to Canada to get the oil after Billy's doctor was ordered to stop prescribing it. But when they returned Monday, their supply was seized. The boy was hospitalised Friday, suffering from severe seizures. British Interior Minister Sajid Javid made his decision after being told by doctors it was a medical emergency. Billy's case has stirred debate on the therapeutic use of cannabis, with campaigners calling for changes to the law.
Clouds of gases and smoke are rising 2 to 3 kilometers into the sky around a volcano in the wildlife-rich Galapagos Islands. Videos released by Galapagos National Park authorities show the volcano on the island of Fernandina spewing out lava. Unlike its eruption 9 months ago, which occurred on the volcano's southern slope, streams of molten lava are now pouring into the sea on its northern slope. Officials say the eruption is posing threats to wildlife in the area, including marine life. The Galapagos Islands are part of Ecuador and lie 1,000 kilometers west of the South American mainland. English naturalist Charles Darwin developed his evolution theory after studying the island's unique animal population.
Back locally, according to a survey conducted by a labour group, more than half of the foreign domestic helpers seeking help from employment agencies were overcharged for such services. As Caleb Long reports, the domestic helpers faced an average fee of $9,000, some 20 times the agencies were legally allowed to charge them.
There are more than 350,000 foreign domestic workers in Hong Kong. Some landed their jobs with the help of employment agencies. Agencies are allowed to receive around $400 per client, as the existing law stipulates that they cannot charge more than 10% of the first month's pay of the worker.
Most of these employment agencies do not comply with the COP. It's still a reality, despite the COP being developed and despite Labour Department saying that it has diligently monitored the employment agencies.
Between July 2017 and March this year, the Hong Kong Federation of Asian Domestic Workers Unions interviewed 452 workers. Around 56% of them were overcharged by agencies. They paid an average of $9,000, more than 20 times than what's allowed. 7 agencies interviewed were also found to have charged workers anywhere from $3,500 to $10,000. In addition to calls to curb overcharging, unionists also want a 2-week rule scrapped. It's one that requires foreign domestic workers to leave town within a fortnight of ending their contracts.
The 2-week rule, which has been a major obstacle for many foreign domestic workers to have their case heard. Many of them are afraid of losing the job and having to be sent back home and not able to come back to work again.
Fernando Cheung thinks the rule is discriminatory as it doesn't apply to other expatriates or even mainlanders who work and live in Hong Kong. Caleb Long, TVB News.
The construction of a multi-university biomedical technology centre is currently in the planning stage. It will be located at the Lok Ma Chau Loop, and planners hope to secure the necessary funds from government. Kena Chu reports.
The government earlier reshuffled the leadership of the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks, appointing 8 new members to the board. Choi Lap-chi, former head of the University of Hong Kong, was reappointed. Choi announced today that the Science Park is planning to build a multi-university biomedical technology center at the Lok Ma Chau Loop. He will be the convener of the preparatory team.
We are moving to the right direction with the right assumption. That is, we want to see innovation technology. That's why we need more research. And then to do research, we need more human resources, more younger generation to come in to do research.
Choi said Hong Kong lacks a place for collaboration and technology transfer among universities. University heads and researchers have welcomed the idea. Choi believes Hong Kong has an advantage in developing biomedical technology in the Greater Bay Area and has the ability to gather experts to work at the center. Choi has already arranged for experts to compile a report for the government's consideration. He is asking for a sum of around $5 billion, which could help run the center for 8 years. The center could also collaborate with cities in the Greater Bay Area and get support from the country. Kena Chu, TVB News.
And that's the news.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.